People, I want you to imagine for a minute a Jewish family helping the Nazis take the homes and belongings of other Jews in World War II. While millions were sent to camps, this family survived. And when the war ended, when countless families returned to nothing, they held everything. And from that moment, the foundation of a fortune was laid. The boy at the center of this story would grow into one of the most powerful men of our time. Years later, he would break the Bank of England, collapse the British pound, and pocket over $1 billion in a single day, leaving a nation on the brink of disaster. But that was only the beginning. Across the world, he left collapsed currencies, broken economies, and he toppled governments until country after country banned and expelled him as a direct threat to their survival. Today, his fortune fuels movements, organizations, and politicians that are tearing our society apart, dismantling law and order, and destabilizing America from within. Most people don't know his face, his history, or the scope of his reach. Search his name and you'll see glowing profiles from outlets tied to his money, while criticism is buried or dismissed as conspiracy. But what you're about to hear, it isn't a rumor, it's a fact. This is not a man of compassion, not a man of charity. This is a man without morals, without ethics, without a soul. If your guess was Satan, you wouldn't be far off. The man we're talking about today, his name is George Soros. Before I get into the story about this guy, I gotta have a glass of wine. I'm drinking my cherry wine right now. Fruit wines are great, but this guy, unbelievable. Salud. The story begins in Hungary during World War II. Jews across Europe, they're being hunted, deported, and killed. Many are forced into impossible choices just to survive. Fake papers, go into hiding, or cooperate with Nazi authorities. Refuse, and you risk the same fate as the 6 million Jews who were murdered. That's the context. George Soros is 14. His father secures false papers and places him with a powerful Hungarian official who poses as his godfather. As Jews are rounded up, Soros accompanies this official while the homes and belongings of absent families are identified and inventoried for confiscation. He sees it firsthand. Families disappear, their lives reduced to lists and ledgers. And when the war ends, countless survivors return to nothing. No homes, no savings, no stability. Soros' family, not in that position. They emerge protected, organized, and with assets preserved. Positions to move quickly in the aftermath. That advantage matters. Years later, in a 60-minute interview from the 90s, Soros is asked whether it was difficult to live with what he had witnessed. His response is chilling.
You went out with this protector of yours who swore that you were his adopted godson.
Yes.
Went out, in fact, and helped in the confiscation of property from the Jews.
That's right.
I mean, that sounds like an experience that would send lots of people to the psychiatric couch for many, many years. Was it difficult?
Not at all. Not at all.
It wasn't difficult. He'd learned the rule that would guide everything after. When others suffer, there's fortunes to be made. After the war, he heads to London. He does books, lectures, long nights at the London School of Economics. He reads Karl Popper and comes away with a simple way to see the world. Systems look solid until pressure hits the weak spot. That idea doesn't stay in classrooms. It becomes a way to make real money. He moves from theory to trading floors, first in London, then New York. Research gigs turn into real positions. He studies markets the way a street guy studies a room. Who's nervous? Who's overextended? Who's lying to themselves? Markets aren't math problems, they're crowds. Find the crack, push at the right time, and the wall gives away. When it does, the money falls to the one who saw it first. In 1973, he launches an aggressive global hedge fund, the Quantum Fund. It hunts for countries and currencies that look fine on paper, but are wobbling underneath. Bad debt, political pressure, fake pegs, shaky central banks. When he finds a crack, he doesn't nibble. He leans in hard. Then comes 1992. the move that makes his name, Black Wednesday. The setup is simple. The UK joins Europe's exchange rate mechanism, ERM, which tries to hold the British pound in a tight hand against other currencies. But the British economy is weak. Inflation is a problem, and defending the pound requires painful interest rate hikes. That's the crack.
There are going to be no devaluations, no leaving the ERM. We are going to maintain sterling's parity, and we will do whatever is necessary.
He builds a massive short against the pound. The Bank of England fights back. It burns reserves, hikes rates, tries to scare the market into backing off. But once confidence breaks, the peg is just a slogan. The dam doesn't leak, it snaps. September 16th, 1992, Black Wednesday. The pound drops out of the ERM, and he walks away with over $1 billion in profit in a single day. The government takes the hit, taxpayers swallow the cost. His name travels the world as the man who broke the Bank of England. And this is the moment the pattern locks in. Previously, we showed how he could come out ahead while everyone else was losing everything. Here, he proves he can do it on purpose, at scale, not just surviving chaos, but timing it, pricing it, and turning it into profit. Next, we follow what happens when that same playbook hits entire regions, Asia, Russia, and beyond. Then we bring it home to what that mindset does inside America. After the pound, the bets don't just hit single countries, they hit entire regions. 1997. Asia looks like a miracle. New buildings, money pouring in, big projects, big promises. Underneath, a lot of that growth runs on borrowed dollars, and the government promises to keep currencies steady. On paper, it looks safe. In real life, it's fragile. Thailand is the first to break. Traders pile on, pressure builds, and the government can't hold the line. Soros and other macro funds, they load up against the currency. Overnight, Thailand's money plunges. Imports double in prices. Small shops relying on foreign parts shut their doors. Construction sites go silent. Parents lose their jobs. College plans vanish because tuition is suddenly out of reach. That's how fast a currency move becomes a family crisis.
I am basically there to make money. I cannot and do not look at the social consequences of what I do.
The shock spreads next door. Malaysia is hit. Money races out of the country. Prices jump. People watch their savings shrink and their mortgages explode. Prime Minister Mahathir, he calls out Soros by name, branding him a predator who attacks nations for profit. Agree or not, the message is clear. The pattern is recognized at the highest level. Indonesia follows, and it's worse. The currency collapses. Companies that borrowed in dollars, they can't pay it back. Factories close. Food prices spike. Riots break out. Lines form for basics. A ruler who held power for decades steps down amid the chaos. What starts as a financial correction turns into a street-level unrest and a political breakdown. Families aren't thinking about markets. They're trying to find rice. 1998. The wave hits Russia. Oil is weak. The state is overextended. Confidence is thin. The ruble cracks. Moscow defaults on domestic debt, and the government lurches into crisis. Paychecks are late or worthless. People line up at banks and get told there's nothing for them. Officials and state media point outward, foreign speculators, Western financiers, Soros among them. By the end of the 90s, you can trace the wreckage on a map. London, Bangkok, Kuala Lumpur, Jakarta, Moscow. The playbook doesn't change. Find a system that looks stable but can't handle stress, lean into it, and watch it snap. And Soros profits. Governments scramble. Regular people absorb the cost. Layoffs, bankruptcies, lost homes, broken plans, and years of recovery. If you can shake entire economies from a distance, you can shape what those countries do next, who they affect, which rules they pass, which voices get louder. And if you can do it there, you can do it here. After the big market wins, he shifts the angle. Not just trades influence, he builds a network with a clean name, Open Society Foundations. To most people, it looks like a charity. It gives grants, it funds projects, it says the right words: democracy, rights, justice. Look closer at how it works and what it changes. The money doesn't land in one place, it's spread out. A legal group here, a campus program there, an independent media project, a group training activists or future prosecutors. One check doesn't do much, hundreds at once do. That's the design. Think of it like a web. Each strand is small. Together the web is strong. If one strand breaks, the web holds. And here's the effect. Lawyers bring cases that just don't win once. They reset the rules. Reform groups push new policies on voting, bail, policing, and immigration that sound nice on paper, then flip real outcomes. Local races nobody watches, especially district attorneys, they suddenly matter because charging decisions and bail policies quietly shift. Media projects and fact checkers, they set the story, decide what normal, and label critics as extreme. This isn't one command center barking orders. It's a network that moves like water, slipping into the cracks. City councils, school boards, DA races, newsrooms, college programs. Money often passes through partner groups and sponsors, so the starting point is hard to see. By the time it reaches a small project with a friendly name, the trail looks clean. That's how you move big without looking big. The language never sounds threatening. It's always bright, open, inclusive, transparent. The results are power. One city tweaks a policy, then another. A state follows. A standard is born. A year later, the rules are different and no one voted on the bigger picture. This web isn't limited to one country. It stretches across Europe, the former Soviet states, Latin America, Africa, Asia, and the United States. Different places, same playbook. Fund the people who write the rules. Fund the people who teach the rules. And fund the people who tell the story about the rules. Ask who's behind it, and you hear the safe answers. Independent nonprofits, community organizations, nonpartisan research. On paper, it's true. In practice, it's all connected. The money keeps flowing in the same direction, toward the same goals, again and again. Why does this matter? Because laws don't only change in Congress. They change in courtrooms, city halls, school boards, and tiny offices most people never think about. Put enough pressure on enough of those spots and the country tilts. First slowly, then suddenly. That's what this network does. It doesn't grab power loudly, it shifts it. It moves the line of what's acceptable, turning yesterday's debate into today's default. And if anyone pushes back, there's a ready-made message. You're against democracy. You're spreading conspiracy. You're the problem. Meanwhile, the grants keep coming, the programs keep growing, and the web tightens. So when people ask how one man's money changes so much, the answer is simple. Not by building one giant thing, but by building many small things that pull the same way, quietly, constantly, everywhere at once. And now that you see how the network works, how the money moves, who it trains, and what it changes, we can talk about what happens when the machine aims straight at America. That's where you feel it in your neighborhood, in your school, and in your news lead every day. George Soros doesn't need Congress to change your life. He works the edges, the places most people never look. One grant at a time, one office at a time, the country moves. Ask around and no one remembers when the shift actually began. Let's take a tour across modern America. We start at the border. Soros backs groups that fight deportation, sue to block enforcement, and push sanctuary policies in major cities. The pitch is always the same: compassion, human rights, due process. The result is predictable. Incentives stay wide open, systems overload, and the cost lands on local hospitals, schools, police in neighborhoods that never ever had a say. Then we step into a city courtroom. He's poured millions into local district attorney races most voters ignore. The ads look harmless, the policies change everything. Suddenly, cash bail is gone. Repeat offenders back on the street. And serious charges get pled down to nothing. Police make the arrests, cases vanish. Businesses learn to lock up early, or they don't survive. People stop reporting crime because it doesn't change what happens next. Outside, the protests fill the streets. Grants fuel advocacy networks that organize marches, lawsuits, and media campaigns. You heard the names: Antifa, BLM, all posing as justice fighters, but in reality, they wreak havoc and terror. The signs go up, the cameras roll, and marches morph into fires, broken glasses, and smashed storefronts. Morning headlines read, "Mostly peaceful." And if you object, you're told you don't understand the context. When arrests happen, friendly prosecutors decline charges or plead them down to nothing. The cycle resets. People learn that chaos pays and order doesn't. Keep walking and you pass open-air drug markets once sold as reform. It started with careful language, medical use, compassionate policy, a promise of tax revenue. It ends with tents, overdoses, and neighborhoods that feel unlivable after dark. Parents change their route to school. Seniors avoid the park. Small shops die, and the tax base follows them out of town. Now look at your phone. The feed seems neutral, but the story is managed. This network funds independent media, fact checkers, and watchdogs that decides what's normal and what's not. Helpful stories get oxygen. Harmful ones get tagged, throttled, or ignored. Critics are branded extreme, misinformed, or conspiratorial. Ordinary people stop talking because they don't want trouble. Meanwhile, the rule book gets rewritten in small rooms, voting procedures revised, bail standards adjusted, policing directives updated, school policies swapped. None of it looks like a revolution. Add it together, and the country you thought you knew tilts under your feet. Step back, and you see the shape: a border crisis, soft on crime persecution, organized street pressure, loose drug policy, managed narratives, and rule changes sliding in under the radar. It doesn't need a national headline. It works because it's everywhere at once. 1,000 small moves in the same direction. People ask, how does one man do all of that? He doesn't swing a hammer, he turns the screws. Fund the lawyers, fund the organizers, fund the storytellers, fund the officials who decide what gets punished and what gets excused. The rest follows. This is how a country changes without a speech, without a bill signing, without a moment you can point to. Quiet money, constant pressure, predictable outcomes. And outside our borders, leaders have seen this pattern up close. Some push back hard. Some shut the door completely. What do we do? Outside America, the playbook didn't go unnoticed. Leaders watched it up close. The funding webs, the pressure campaigns, the courtroom whims that hardened into permanent rule changes and decided they've seen enough. Start in the East. Russia labeled his network undesirable and shut it out. No debate, no warning, out. The judgment was clear. The operation threatened the country's constitutional order and stability. In his birthplace, Hungary passed laws aimed directly at the operation, tightened controls on foreign-funded NGOs, and pushed his university out. The message was simple. You don't get to rewrite our policies from the shadows. Head south. Turkey closed his shop after determining his circles helped fuel mass unrest. The foundation packed up and left. This wasn't philanthropy. It was political engineering with a checkbook. Then to South Asia. Pakistan revoked permission for outside NGOs and showed the door to groups tied to Soros funding. Officials drew the line. National policy would be set by the nation, not by an imported network. Trace the pushback further. Poland's leadership calls out his influence openly. Israel's government condemns the groups he finances for undermining national policy. In North Macedonia, the street response had a name: Stop Operation Soros. Different languages, same conclusion. This is leverage, not charity. Notice the pattern? These countries don't share ideology. They don't vote the same way. Many don't even like each other. But they all looked at the effects on courts, media, and elections and drew the same line: Soros must be stopped. And this matters. When rival nations reach the same verdict independently, you're not seeing rumor. You're seeing a consistent response to a consistent threat. The network arrives with bright language and big grants. Pressure builds. Rules tilt toward a radical progressive agenda. Some countries learned it the hard way. Others moved first and locked the door, which brings us back to the West, where the image is polished, the profiles are friendly, and the top search results read like press releases. If he can be expelled abroad and applauded here, that tells you everything about how the story is managed and who controls the narrative in America. You don't have to hide in the shadows if you can live under a spotlight you control. That's the trick. Type his name into Google. The first results are positive. Awards, donations, philanthropist. Many of those articles come from outlets and groups that have received his money. Critical pieces are pushed lower or come with warning labels. Most people never scroll past page 1, so the positive story sticks. Turn on the TV. The wording is the same on many channels. Supports democracy, backs evil society, fights disinformation. When someone disagrees, the response appears fast. Fact checks, panels, and opinion pieces repeating the same defense. It's not one boss giving orders. It's a lot of people trained by the same programs and funded by the same network, now talking the same exact way. Open an online encyclopedia. The page reads like a job resume. The donations are big and upfront. Controversies are smaller, softened, or pushed to the bottom. If you didn't already know the other side of the story, you wouldn't think to question anything. Look at your social feeds. Platforms say they boost trusted sources and reduce harm. In practice, that means stories that help his image show up more, and stories that challenge it are labeled slow down or ignored. Creators learn the rules. Avoid certain topics if you want to keep your reach. When bad news breaks, riots tied to a funded group, a lawsuit, a policy failure, the cleanup is quick. A partner organization releases a statement. A friendly expert posts a threat. A TV segment changes the angle. Then attention moves on. The problem fades, the image stays. At the same time, the network keeps growing. And now his son steps in with a smoother presentation. More photos, more panels, more meetings with powerful people. The label stays philanthropy. The results show up in laws, courtroom decisions, media coverage, and what's allowed online. The one question left to examine is, what did all of this leave behind? We started with a wartime lesson. In other people's tragedy, there's a way to come out ahead. Then came the markets, find the weak point, apply pressure, cash out while nations pick up the pieces. After that, the network, 1,000 grants pulling in one direction until courts, media, and local rule books tilt. Finally, America, a border in crisis, soft on crime prosecution, streets on edge, drugs in the open, crime rampant, and a managed narrative that tells you this is all for the sake of progress. That isn't philanthropy. It never was. And now even the headlines are catching up. President Trump publicly called for RICO charges against George Soros and his son Alex, saying prosecutors should treat their funding networks as organized racketeering. And multiple outlet reports, the DOJ has pushed U.S. attorneys to draft plans and consider charges tied to protest funding and related activity. Open Society Foundation denies any wrongdoing and says it hasn't been contacted directly, but the direction is clear. The era of untouchable image management is hopefully over. None of this means one man acted alone. He didn't have to. Follow the money and the patterns, and you see a larger design. A coordinated set of pressures that weakens nations from the inside, with America as the main prize. Change the border. Change the prosecutors. Change the rules no one notices. Control the story. The pieces move separately, but the picture is one. A push toward a single global order that answers to networks, not voters. Where are the facts, Michael? Where are you getting this? They're everywhere. In filings and grant lists, in campaign ledgers and DA races, in policy memos and best practices that quietly rewrote your city, in the track record of the man himself. Follow the money, follow the outcome, follow a man's ideology and upbringing, and the truth takes shape. This is the legacy on the table, not speeches, not promises, outcomes that left country unstable, communities unsafe, and a free people managed by narrative instead of represented by law. And unless someone draws a hard line, the next generation of the same machine is already in place to carry it forward. What are we going to do about it, America? Wake up. This is real. These are facts. George Soros is a bad guy. He wants to destroy this nation. And you know what? He's making progress. He needs to be stopped now.